If you've been around Helldivers too long enough, you'll generally see two sentiments. The game is too easy, or weapons need a buff. And both can be true at the same time. Let's start with the game is too easy. So, what makes it easy? And I would say it's because the main objectives can't be destroyed, except for one mission. Which means there is no time pressure, nor any reason for players to be careful with their stratagems around the objective. But making main objectives destructible just makes the gameplay more limiting, and prone to failure that could be outside of the player's control, which would not be a good design. So maybe the solution is in the stratagems. However, if we were to start increasing cooldowns of stratagems, it would just make people wait longer and the gameplay less enjoyable. Now I want you to hold on to this thought as we take a look at the other argument. Guns are too weak. There are two arguments here. The first one is about time to kill, and the second is inter-weapon identity. For this video, I want to focus on the second argument. Let's use assault rifles as the example, since I think they're the most egregious. And for a more comparable use case, let's ignore both the concussive and pacifier. Using static configurations, let's take a look at how each weapon compares against common enemies. Let's start with the bugs. Against warriors, all weapons take 2 shots to destroy the head, except penetrator. Against alpha commander heads, the magazine consumption is almost the same, with the advantage favoring medium pen. Against hunters, they are again fairly similar, only needing 1 shot to the head or 2 to 3 shots to the body. Against nursing spear heads, it is once again very similar in performance, taking roughly 13 to 14% of ammo. However, we then get to the enemies where medium pen wins outright, the first being hive guards. While not being a real threat themselves, nor difficult to kill, what makes them dangerous is their ability to call a breach, so being able to kill them quickly to the head is much more beneficial. Then we have the dreaded bow spewers. The mouth is supposed to be AP 0, but I have never damaged them with a light pen weapon, so we're really just left with the head, which is AP 3. Otherwise, the only spot that light pen can damage them is the sack, which takes a ridiculous amount of damage. On the bot side, their performances are once again similar. Against troopers, they're all 1 shot to the head and 2 shot to the torso, except for Tenderizer, who can 1 shot them in the torso. Against Devastators, it's 2 shot to the head, and comparable magazine consumption to the leg. I'm ignoring the boss because it's better to go for the other 2 spots, the head being much weaker, and the legs having a much larger hitbox. Medium pen also has the option of torso shots. Against rocket striders, it's 2 shots to the rockets, and waist shots favor medium pen weapons, since it's a bigger target and doesn't have durability, unlike the legs. I can't be bothered doing illuminates, since you probably get the point. Overall, there isn't that much of a distinction between the assault rifles, since they either have comparable shots to kill or magazine consumption. The main differences only come from armor penetration, which enables certain enemies to be killed much more efficiently. In the current system, these guns can't be buffed independently of one another, as it will make the other guns redundant. So what can be done? Well, this is where having an economy would fix this dilemma. If we take inspiration from Counter-Strike, then making a cost requisition to bring loadouts into a mission can enable different guns to have its use cases. For example, let's pretend that Adjudicator now does 150 per shot, but costs 10,000 requisition to bring into a mission, while Liberator still does 80 per shot and is still like pen, but costs nothing. Now you can make an active decision on which weapon to bring. This also gives different difficulties a purpose. A Liberator can be a disadvantage in higher difficulties because of its lower penetration and lower damage, but is a benefit in lower difficulties because it costs nothing. We can also extend this to stratagems. In my opinion, Napalm Barrage is very strong, to the point that it's almost OP against Terminids. But instead of needing to increase its cooldown or decrease its damage to make it feel more balanced, simply making it have a high requisition cost per use would balance it. Let's suppose that the maximum requisition you can hold now is 1 million. We could set Napalm Barrage to cost 100,000 per use. This way you can still call down several Napalm Barrages in the mission, but if you overuse it, then you can come out of the mission with a net loss. Its cooldown could even be lowered to 2 minutes, and it still wouldn't be overpowered because of its high cost. Max difficulty could also be increased without turning the game into run divers, since stratagems can now have lower cooldown and higher effectiveness, which can be offset by requisition cost. This provides a very organic way to balance difficulty choice. Another part that I would like to see changed is the boosters. Boosters right now are kind of boring, and don't really feel that they impact the mission in a good way. Something I've thought about is making the Siege artillery into a booster. Now, the current Siege sub-objective has several downsides. The first is the randomness of its shells. Sometimes you just find a whole bunch of smoke. And the other is its very limited uses, as well as the lack of information on what shell is loaded next. My idea is that Siege artillery, as a booster, would cost samples to bring into a mission, and uses different shells depending on the tier you choose. So it could cost 50 common samples to bring a Siege artillery that uses explosive shells, or 50 rare samples, which uses high explosive shells, or 50 super samples, which uses mini nukes. And we could make it have infinite use, but with a longer cooldown, like maybe 1 minute. These are just some ideas I had for a Helldivers economy that could organically shake up how people play, instead of needing people to find arbitrary ways to enjoy the game. And also is a way to make the game easy to balance both fun and difficulty at the same time. There are also changes to some systems that I would like to see, to make the game less annoying, and just wanted to add it to this video. Starting with the health system. The bonus damage that players receive from headshots should be removed. At this point, it's basically just a random crit. Next, the body damage system should be removed. It doesn't serve as an interesting mechanic, since we don't have any in-depth triage system. Lastly, I would like a regen. Just 1% per second would be fine, as it's really just there to top up your health when you take those small chip damages. The other main change I would like to see is to the armor system and its stats. First, every armor set should have the same max speed, but different acceleration rates. So lighter armor would have the highest acceleration rate, while heavy armor has the lowest. This would just make getting around the map more enjoyable regardless of armor choice. Second, sprinting shouldn't cost stamina. Stamina should be the resource that prevents flinching and ragdolling, with light armors having the least and heavy armors having the most. With these changes, it would give stronger identities to each armor types, with light armor focused on mobility and flanking, and heavy armor better at trading hits. So these are my ideas to make the game more enjoyable. Let me know what you think.